yes, Stadium Series is Saturday, but NC State, Carolina on Sunday, 1 o'clock is all part of this huge weekend. And you and I talked about this earlier in the week, and it's worth repeating. Worse Carolina teams have swept NC State in the regular season. I mean, it's not that long ago. You can go back to that lost Cole Anthony season. Injury-riddled for Cole Anthony, unfortunately. Miserable year for Roy Williams. And had it not been for the pandemic, they would have missed the tournament, and they can just say that, oh, yeah, he never missed the tournament while he was at North Carolina. Well, I'm sorry, no, he only missed it once because of the NIT season in 2010. But point being, they weren't headed to the tournament in 2020.
No, a losing record.
So even that team swept NC State. There was another team that I'm forgetting that swept NC State that also had a kind of miserable year.
The NIT team.
Was the NIT team
did
it as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there you go. And I think NC State fans understand that. And whatever you think about NCAA tournament chances for both NC State, who I think is fine, and North Carolina, who needs the game for NCAA purposes, I really think that this game is about the Wolfpack more so than it is North Carolina. Because if you feel that you're this good team, if you feel that you've turned things around this year, if you truly want justice for Terquavion, okay, well then you put the hammer down on a Carolina squad that you think you're better than at home. This is what do you like to call these games? The run it back. This is my turn. You're at my building now.
Except this is a Q1 game for Carolina.
Yeah.
They're 0-9 in Q1 games, so they desperately need this game. So how is it not about Carolina?
It's a micro, which you just pointed out, versus a macro.
Okay.
Which is typically what happens with NC State and Carolina. You kind of joked on Courtney Bangart for the irrelevancy of NC State and Carolina. Okay.
No, I wasn't joking.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
If NC State truly wants to establish itself or really wants to have a conversation.
If it would like to be relevant?
Yeah. Well, then you're going to have to, when the opportunity is there to beat North Carolina, freaking do it. And this is your opportunity to do so. A reeling North Carolina squad. You could very well,
they've lost 4 or 5.
As if you don't need any more motivation than what happened in Chapel Hill, you could knock them out of NCAA tournament consideration for good. Because it's not possible with their opportunities remaining. I mean, is Virginia a given? No.
No, I'm saying, well, for Carolina, they have 3 Q1 games left.
Yes.
I think they need to win 2 of those. I think if they do, they'll be in the tournament.
Well,
I think NC State has 4 total games.
Don't be one of them.
I think NC State has 4 total games left. I think they need to win 2 of those games. Mm-hmm. What's important about those 4 final games for NC State is those are the teams they're competing against to get into the NCAA tournament. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
no, I know what you mean.
You don't want to sit there on Selection Sunday and having been swept by Carolina, well, who are you going to take? You don't want to be in that position. Same with Clemson. Yeah. You know, Clemson's still a team that can be in the NCAA tournament. You don't want to be there on Selection Sunday and realize, hey, well, what do we do again? Now, the head-to-head is further down the committee's list, and a lot of people get confused by that because your full resumes are compared first. But you just don't want to put yourself in that situation if you're NC State. And for the most part, this team, they haven't lost consecutive games this year.
No.
They've played in such a way that they just seem to be carefree. They seem to just play, get in the moment, and understand what's in front of them and try to take on that task. Do I think, you mentioned, square it for Terquavion Smith. Do I think they care about that? I don't know. I had asked Scott Woods on Pack Therapy today about, as a player,
sure,
someone wears a glass, mocks you after a game. Was that something you would be like, all right, let's go do it for Terquavion? He's like, well, I don't know if everyone would, but I think if you're Terquavion and you're a competitor and you're trying to be the ACC Player of the Year, he's like, that would be motivation for me.
There's motivational factors that are in play here. To me, the bigger motivational factor is it's almost be about it. When it comes
if you want to be about that life, then be about that life.
Be about it.
Show that you are.
And here's an opportunity for you to do so. I mean, I can sit here and we've banged on North Carolina for not putting the hammer down on teams that should put the hammer down if they were really about it, as we talked about. I feel like NC State's in that position. If NC State is truly better than North Carolina this year, at home, you have
to prove it.
You got to prove it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's a bigger game for NC State than it is North Carolina. I really do.
I think it's a big game for both teams.
Sure.
To be perfectly honest.
Sure.
The situation that Carolina's in, they need to win 2 of those 3 opportunities. You mentioned They don't play well against Virginia, so this is probably a game they have more of a chance of winning than the Virginia game.
Same with having Duke at home, too, because Duke's margin for error, and as we've seen Duke on the road, they've been on the losing side of those thin games.
Carolina has not shown that they can muck it up with a team and beat them. That's the problem for Carolina.
That's fair, too.
And that's probably why they do well against State. State's a pretty team.
Mm-hmm.
State wants to play. State wants to get up and down the floor with you. Duke is not a pretty team. Clemson's not a pretty team. Virginia's definitely not a pretty team. So that's styles make fights. And for the most part, Kevin Keatts wants to play an up-tempo style. And quite frankly, you just can't run with Roy Williams. That was proven time after time. You can't press him either.
Yeah.
Now, with this group, can you do a little bit more? You get Jack Clark back in the fold. I thought his performance at Syracuse on Tuesday was really important for them moving forward. Will we see Dusan Mahorsic tonight on Sunday? Maybe. I mean, we're a little bit overdue on his target return date.
Yeah, I thought he was supposed to be back here soon.
That would be a big boost if you could keep DJ Burns out of foul trouble, because as we've talked about with Baycott, length bothers Baycott.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that length, then you probably need to double him. And Kevin doesn't really like to double.